show, Debbie.
Cool. Good to be here.
Good to have you here. It's been a long time coming. Really wanted to have you here. So, having heard you speak this week, I was real inspired by your presentation. I think one of the key messages that, I got from you was that, it's good to have ambition, but also back up that ambition. So how did you find it going through school? Were you a dreamer at school as well as you are now?
That's a really good question. I think I'm trying to think back. So I went to school in Dunedin. I'm from Dunedin.
Yep.
I went to a all-girls school down there called Columba College.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed sport at school, and I particularly loved horse riding. So I was very, very lucky to have lots of access to horses growing up. So I think that was the thing that I probably put the most of my time into when I was younger at school. And I just loved the horses, and I did horse riding competitions to a relatively high level. So I was in a New Zealand team when I was 16 for that.
That's pretty good.
So I think that was probably my competitive outlet when I was at school. And then I was always focused on studying and academics as well. But I never, when I was at school, I wasn't focusing on LearnCoach when I didn't have a vision for where I would be going or where I'd end up now. So that's kind of all unfolded organically. I always thought at school that I would go on to study medicine, which I did, but the other things that have happened since then have just happened kind of organically.
Yep. So many of you guys might not know that Deb studied medicine and Miss World and is now an investment banker. So could you explain that transition period between medicine and investment banker? What sparked that? Because, you're going from a very promising career, being a doctor, and then going to an investment banker, which is very volatile as well.
Yeah. So I guess I really enjoyed... Well, I've got two parents that were doctors. Yeah. As I spoke to you about in the presentation that I did earlier in the week. So two medical parents. So the good and the right thing to do when I was at school was always to study medicine. So I went in-house at Otago and got through that. And then in about the third or the fourth year, I was like, I'm actually really interested in the business world, which isn't something that my family is interested in at all. So I was like, what can I do to extend my knowledge in this area? So I took the year off between third and fourth year and enrolled in a course called Masters in Entrepreneurship. And so in that course, you do a little bit of basic finance, basic accounting, basic management, an overview of what an entrepreneur is and things like that. So that was my first kind of introduction to the business world. And I knew that I was really interested and would like to try working in an area outside of the hospital, but half a med degree is worth nothing. And also I was really enjoying my med degree. So I went back to med school, finished medicine and worked for 2 years. And I really enjoyed working at Wellington Hospital, which is what I did. And then I had a friend who worked in the investment banking team at FNZC, which is where I work now. And she basically told me that they were recruiting for a job and that I should apply. And I thought, I'm never going to get the job because I don't have a finance degree. So they'll want someone who studied finance and has been really focused on investment banking from day one. And so anyway, I did the psychometric testing and phone interview and then flew up for a day of interviews with the team and then got offered the job. And so I was like, what do I do now? If I say no, I'll have turned down a really good opportunity and always wonder what if. And if I say yes, there's a real chance that I won't like it or won't be good at it. But I thought I'd rather just take the plunge and see what happens. So that's how I ended up transitioning from studying medicine, working in the hospital, to doing investment banking.
So how is investment banking different to normal banking?
Well, it's very different. So when you think about a bank or going into a bank like ANZ or BNZ, you go in and see someone and deposit your money or order a credit card. That is nothing to do with what I do day to day. And so what my team does is we are a team of about 20 and we help companies with any big financial transaction. So we basically do financial deals. So if a company is looking to buy another company, we would advise them through the whole process. Or if a company is wanting to look for a buyer, so to sell the entirety of its company or a part of its company, we would take them through the whole of that process, which would be looking at who could buy them, looking at like the value of the company, and taking them through the whole due diligence process as people look to acquire them.
Yeah.
If a company wanted to list on the stock exchange, we would help them do an IPO, so we could help them with that. If a company needed to raise money, we could help them with that. So we basically facilitate all of those kind of transactions.
So you guys are not venture, so do you guys give businesses money to start their venture, or?
So my the company that I work for is a very broad company that does a number of things. The team that I'm in, the investment banking team, doesn't do that, but there is a part of the firm, like a different team called Principal Investments, that does invest in companies, if that makes sense. But that's not what I do, and not part of investment banking.
So how does someone get into that? Like, let's say someone's really interested in finance.
Yeah.
Do they necessarily have to go to university, or could they pick it up real fast being in the industry itself?
I think everyone in my team would definitely have a uni degree, but we are all from quite diverse backgrounds. So there's myself, who's medically trained, and then there are like 3 people who've done law degrees and 2 people who've done engineering, and then the rest of the team probably have degrees which are more BCom with a focus on accounting and finance. So I think what they're looking for is they're looking for someone who is good with numbers, and for someone who works well in a team, and for someone who's just smart enough to think critically and get the job done.
Yeah. It's very interesting, because looking, at the businesses now, at the business industry, you see a lot more young people that don't go to university really flourish in the industry. Why do you think that is, though? I'm not sure. I guess maybe if you are brave enough to not go to university and to do something that's so off the, kind of like a little bit off the beaten track, then you're probably brave enough to take the risks that are needed to succeed in the business world. Yeah. So let's segue into Miss World. So tell us the beginnings of it, your modelling career, and how that all started.
It's so weird. I still, when I think about it, I'm like, I can't believe I went to that competition, because it's something that I would have never thought that I could have done when I was at school and growing up. And so I told you the story, kind of like the story of when I was
please share that. That's a really, really inspiring story.
When I was at school. So everyone has different shapes and sizes and has a different body shape, but I was quite chubby. Like pre-puberty I was quite chubby, and then from puberty I kind of like grew tall, and then since then have just been pretty tall and thin. But prior to that I was always chubby, and I got teased at school for being chubby, and so I never really thought of myself as someone that could do modelling at all. And I was never really interested, to be honest, either growing up. I just love my horses and love the outdoors. And so it was a real kind of shock to me when, I think it was my first year of university or my last year of high school, I got spotted by this model agency when I was in the Rob Roy Dairy in Dunedin. And I thought that she was talking to my friend rather than talking to me, but she was actually talking to me. And then she was like, you should come in and see me. And I was like, no way, I'm not, like, I don't want to do that. That's not me. That's not who I am. And so I went on with my summer and didn't get in touch with her. And it was about like 2.5 or 3 months later when my friend was like, why haven't you gone in and seen her? You could be like missing out on a really good opportunity. So it wasn't until my friend kind of pushed me to take the leap and actually go back in and see her. And so when I did go back in to see her, she'd forgotten who I was. But she was like, but you look like this could be something that you could do. So I started off from that, just doing runway modelling and a little bit of editorial stuff. And then from that, because I guess I enjoy public speaking and am like a little bit more, or I guess I'm a well-rounded, like I have like there's different things that I enjoy doing. Someone said that I should enter Miss Otago,
Okay.
And so I did that, and then from that I got asked to do Miss New Zealand, and I was actually runner-up the first time that I did it. And then I was like, oh, I should give it one more try. And I gave it one more try, and then won in 2015. And then from that went to Miss World, which was in China in the year that I did it in 2015.
Yeah. So what does those, beauty pageants stand for? What's the purpose behind it?
Yeah. So I guess my parents and my grandma especially were like horrified, absolutely horrified at the idea that I would go into a competition like that. But
why though?
What?
Yeah, why were they
horrified?
Yeah.
I guess so back in the 80s and the 90s, these competitions stood for everything that empowered women are trying to overcome. And I think people often think that it's just about appearances and that. But so since the time where my grandma was growing up and my mum was growing up, the competitions have changed a lot. And the competition that I did, so there's two different franchises. So there's Miss Universe and Miss World. And Miss Universe is the one that used to be owned by Trump and has bikinis on stage and is much more superficial and just about how you look, whereas Miss World is much more, there's no bikinis and no swimsuit in Miss World, and it's got much more of a focus on your leadership skills and your public speaking skills, and so everyone does an interview. And the most important thing about Miss World is what they call the Beauty with a Purpose project, and so every contestant that goes to the competition has to do basically a charitable project in their own country. And so for me, we had at that stage already started LearnCoach, but I used LearnCoach as my project, which I took to Miss World. And so if you think about it, if every single contestant, which is 126 countries, if every contestant has to think about what they can do in their country to basically make their community a better place, that's really powerful. So there's contestants who, I'm trying to think of the different projects. They're amazing. There were ones against...
I think the one in India you were telling me about with the women's health hygiene.
Yeah, which was awesome. So they, it costs about US $50,000 to buy these machines. And what the machines do is women in rural communities get a job working on these machines that make... sanitary pads that are good for their environment, that are environmentally friendly. And so it removes the stigma from young girls and women who are stopped from doing things that they need to do when they have their period, because they have access to low cost sanitary items that are good for the environment. And it also gives rural women jobs in their community where they wouldn't otherwise have them. And so by empowering the woman in the community, it creates a big change. And so Minushi, who won Miss World in 2017, she, before she won her project, was one of those machines, and then after she won, because she had so much support from her government, she, I think, implemented maybe 2 or 3 more in India, and then also implemented one in Umtata, which is a rural South African community. So it's those kind of things that, to me, are the really good things about Miss World. It's a community project.
So did you start LearnCoach after or before?
Prior.
So how does that begin?
So Dave and I started LearnCoach back in 2012. So that would have been my second year of university. And at that time, Dave was teaching at Otago Boys High School. And Dave did the Masters of Entrepreneurship the year before I did. And then I did it during that year. And so we were getting all of these skills, which were basically teaching us how you can start your own small venture that could have an impact in the community. And we had also, so Dave was a qualified teacher. I had tutored people all through school and high school. And I think if you have the skills to actually make things simple for people, that's really valuable. And so we were like, how can we go from teaching just people like me tutoring you one-on-one, and then we were doing group tutorials, and then we were like, how can we help as many people as we can with these? So we basically just kind of like this, and with the video camera started recording like that, and then we got the LearnCoach format, and then it just kind of grew from there. And it started off initially, we just wanted to do free tutorials for high school students.
Yeah.
So it started off just focusing on maths and science subjects for level 1. And then from there, it's grown and grown and grown.
Jeez.
Yeah, so it's been exciting.
So where do you see that going then?
So I think
in the next 5 years.
Yeah, in the next 5 years, hopefully. I mean, it depends on lots of factors, but what we would like to see in 5 years is a complete second chance school where people who have been falling through the cracks in our education system for whatever reason can have a second chance at the education that they need. So we would envision a future where learning is much more flexible, much more personalised. Well, there's still a place for bricks and mortar schools, and so what we would see is that bricks and mortar schools, with
sounds so old.
But like, I think teachers are really, really important and play a really important role. But what we would see is that school becomes more of a social hub. So it's still awesome to go to school and see all your friends and get extra help from your teacher when you need it. But rather than everyone working at the same pace, at the same content, like in the classroom, I think it will be, this is what we envision, it will be much more personalised. So there'll be a group of students who are all working at their own pace, at their own level, doing work that they personally find interesting. And then the teachers come in and help them with their own personalised learning plan. And I think LearnCoach can empower or can make that kind of learning much more accessible.
Yeah. But don't you think most teachers would be, real hesitant to that idea?
Well, I don't know. So what we see or what we believe is that it will make a teacher's job easier. So if a teacher has 30 students in a class and teaches, 5 or 6 classes a day, they have on average less than 2 minutes per student to help that student. And so I think if the actual, the bulk teaching of the content is done through really good teachers online, if you can have world-class teachers teaching you online and then the teacher can just come in and help people where they need it, that would really free up the teacher. And one thing that we found really interesting actually is on LearnCoach you can sign up as like a student or as a teacher, and there's quite a few teachers that have that sign up and that just use it as a good resource in their classes. So use the videos in their classes because we've laid it all out simply, and why would they write it all up on the whiteboard or whatever if it's already there and it's free and it's easy to use.
So the way I see it, it could potentially be like that in the future, making teachers' job different to what it is now. Instead of them being up on the whiteboard, it's different. I think in the next 5 to 10 years, education will look completely different, and maybe not in the next 5, but in the next 10. And already schools have changed so much. So when I was at school, I didn't have a laptop at school, and I didn't get a laptop until my 2nd or 3rd year of uni, and that was really normal. And so we all wrote notes on paper, and I had books that I took to school. But now, I mean, I don't know, I'm not at school now, but I think so much of it is done. Far digital.
Yeah, exactly. And so in 5 or 10 more years, it will have moved so much more again.
So would that mean that some part of teachers' job would become redundant and automated?
I think it will.
By virtual, schooling?
Yeah, I think it will become different. And it's hard to know exactly how it will look, but I think there'll always be a place for good, interested teachers who care about their students. Like that role will never go away. Because you can't replace with a computer someone who actually cares about you and takes an interest in you and takes an interest in your education. So that will be, I think, where I see the important role that teachers will play.
So what should the outcome of school be, other than, let's say, grades and accomplishments? What should, if you could, teach, or if you could design the curriculum, what should they teach more of?
Well, it's a really interesting question. What should the role of education be? Like, why should we go to school? I mean, and is it to get a good job so that you can leave school and you know what job you want to do? Or is it to get skills so that you can get the job that you want? Or is it to be able to think critically, or is it to learn social skills? And I think it's a combination of all of those things. But I think an education system where you leave without having the skills to get a job for the future would be an education system that has failed you. And I think an education system where you would leave without the social skills that you need to kind of succeed in the world would have also failed you. So I think it's a combination of having the skills that you need to apply for and apply yourself to getting a job or working in an area that you want, and also the social skills that you need to do that. Yeah. So it's not just in my opinion about just passing tests and getting marks. It's about where that will take you and what opportunities that will give you.
Because it's definitely, the way I see it, being a student, just, recently graduated, it's like you're ticking boxes, you're there, you tick boxes. And if that were the outcome one chooses to, go forth, virtual school is far better than, normal school, because in a normal school, you're probably, this from my experience and a lot of my friends' experience, is like you're spending 10 minutes to 20 minutes a day actually doing your work. The rest is probably spent yarning with your friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then that, again, it stems the idea of like, what's important? If we're trying to prepare for the future, what are the skills? Because I was reading this article and it said, in the age of artificial intelligence and automation, the most powerful skill or, attribute to have is leadership skills. So could you adapt on that? What do you think, in a way, a good leader, especially in a business, medical, or school world, would look like?
Yeah. And I think the other thing that's really important is flexibility.
How so? How what do you mean by that?
So flexibility too. So I think on average, like my parents and your parents probably had, I don't know about your parents, but my parents have had one career, one job. My dad's been in the same job his whole career, and I'm 28 and I'm already, studied medicine, worked in the hospital, and now I'm working in a completely different field.
Yeah.
And I think so people's careers are much more circuitous than they were previously. So I think being adaptable and able to apply yourself in a number of different areas is a really important skill.
Yeah.
But back to leadership, I think, or to me, leadership is caring enough about something where you actually want to make a difference.
Yeah.
And everyone has different ideas of what leadership is, but leadership can be like on any level. It can be that you see an issue in your school or in your workplace and you care enough about that to do something to make a difference, or in your community you see something that's an issue and you care enough about that to make a difference. Or for Dave and I with LearnCoach, it's that we learned and knew that in New Zealand there are so many kids who, unlike me and unlike Dave, have no one to help them. Like, imagine if you went home and your parents didn't have the skills to help you when you needed it.
Yeah.
Like that sucks, and that's a massive disadvantage. And so we cared enough about that to start something that we hope is making a difference.
Could you teach that though? That's the question.
Well, I don't know.
It's because it's not like, math tests, because you can teach algebra and you know if someone knows algebra because you can see it on a piece of paper. But how does one teach leadership though?
I think it's like all of those soft skills. It's like, how do you teach communication skills? How do you teach someone to relate to someone else? How do you teach someone to care? How do you teach ethics? How do you teach morals? And I think the only way that you can learn those kind of things is by seeing other people doing it. And I guess that it's not, you can't really test for that. It's about, when I think like who has influenced or impacted my life, and who do I see that I have learned from, those would be people that I would learn leadership skills from. Not like I can't read in a textbook or watch a video about leadership and then implement that. I have to see it in action and be like, oh, that's amazing, that person's amazing, maybe I could do something like that.
Yeah, that's definitely true. But sort of segueing, a lot of people see you, I see you as pretty successful, doing all these careers and you're really high up there. But a lot of people don't see the failure points, the times where it wasn't all good. Tell us about your major failures and what you've learned from that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And also, it always surprises me when people say that, like, that they think I'm successful, because for me, I'm like, I'm just doing like one day at a time, and just like I'm still like super stressed sometimes, and like still just trying to do a good job at my job and just trying to do my best day to day. So that for me has like never changed, and that's kind of been what I've been trying to do always, is say yes to opportunities that come my way and try to do my best job at things when I am given the chance to do them.
Yeah.
So that's what I try to do. But failures, there's been so many failures along the way. I mean, and all that, like I feel like we're all constantly failing. If you're not failing, then you're not trying hard enough or not putting yourself out there enough. And when I think back about failures that stand out, it will be, I'll tell you about the Rhodes Scholarship, which I've already talked to you about a little bit, but I really had my heart set on winning a Rhodes Scholarship.
So what is that for people that don't know?
So it's a fully paid scholarship to study a course of your choice at Oxford University overseas, and you can study for 2 to 3 years, and it basically really opens up doors for you to study with the leading people in the field of your interest. And so I had wanted to do that. I remember there was a girl from my high school who'd studied medicine and then got a Rhodes Scholarship. And I really looked up to her. She's called Julia Matheson, and I spoke to her about her experience over there and everything that she'd learned, and thought it would be a really awesome thing to apply for, and was encouraged by her and a few other people to apply. And so I applied for it, and then was lucky enough to be shortlisted at Otago. And so Otago Uni nominates a couple of people every year. So how it works is you apply to your local university, which is Otago, and then you have interviews there, and then they choose maybe 2 or 3 people to put forward nationally, and then from those 2 or 3 people that are put forward from each university, I think 6 are chosen and interviewed.
Yeah.
And so I flew up and had a day of interviews at Government House and a dinner, and met the Governor General who interviewed me, and they were all previous Rhodes Scholars were the winners. And so these were all amazing people who I thought had accomplished really good things. And then what happened was after you go back, after everyone's done the interviews, you go back and you're all lined up in a row, and then the Governor General announces who the Rhodes Scholars are for the year, and it wasn't me. And I was really gutted about that, because to apply, you have to say what you want to study and what your area of interest is, and you have to contact people over there to say, would you be interested in, would I be able to go and work under you? So I'd as part of the application process, you really work through what your life would be like, and so it was really, I guess, disappointing for me, and not meant to be. And then what happens is not only did I fail that time, but then I talked to some more people, and they were like, why didn't you put LearnCoach on your application? Because I had really focused on my medical studies and what I wanted to study over there, and then talked a little bit about being Miss New Zealand and what I'd done with that. And I hadn't included LearnCoach in my application, which was stupid, because it is the biggest and the best thing that I've done. And so then I reapplied the next year at Otago. And so from that, in that time, LearnCoach had hugely grown and made a huge impact. And I'd got really good grades and had more time to think about what I wanted to do over there. And so, in my opinion, did a much better application. And so Otago shortlists 10 people each year for interviews. And they didn't even shortlist me the second time, which in my opinion was, and so I emailed them afterwards and I was like, why, is there a reason that my application wasn't good? And they just said they prefer people who are first-time applicants. And I guess what was disappointing with that is that if they only are going to choose people that are first-time applicants, they should have that as the criteria. They shouldn't, if it's not an actual rule, then it's not a rule. And if it's a rule, then it's a rule. So I think for me, I definitely had my heart set on that, and really there's nothing else I could have done. It just wasn't meant to be for me. I applied twice and got turned down both times.
So how do you bounce back from that? That's because 2-3 years you're envisioning yourself there, studying, and then that's done. You're no longer gonna do that.
Yeah, exactly.
So how did you? What was the mental gymnastics you took to, get over that?
Yeah, I think that when things don't go my way, I think I like to, like, there's different kinds of people, and some people like to be, it's fine, like I'm not really that disappointed anyway, but I was like, I'm actually really gutted. Like, I like to acknowledge that it's really disappointing if you've worked hard for something, and if you've had a goal and it doesn't work out.
It sucks like shit.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah. It really sucks. So I guess I was really disappointed for a while, and then you kind of just like lick your wounds and you just carry on doing what you're doing. So I just carried on, finished my medical degree, focused on LearnCoach, and have really just, I guess you just move on. And also I'm stoked, like if I'd gone overseas, then we wouldn't have been able to grow LearnCoach into what it is today.
It's true, yeah.
And so I guess you start to see, like, there's never a good reason for like something that you're looking forward to, or like that you really hope for not working out, but like other things work out. And so by not going and studying at Oxford, I've been able to really progress LearnCoach and finish my medical studies, and now I'm working in finance. And I think you just think, if I'd gone over there, my whole life would be on a completely different trajectory. Yeah.
So, talking to you, you seem very, very busy. How do you manage all that? How do you manage your time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or you're just effective so you don't spend that much. How do you do that? How do you do all that?
Yeah, I think time management is always a challenge. And I think I say yes to things that I want to do, that I think will be like fun, or that I'll learn from, or that I think it's worth me doing. But then I also have to say no to stuff that I can't do. So sometimes it sucks, but I just have to say no to things sometimes. And then also, I guess, I really focus on trying to enjoy doing what I'm doing. So I guess that helps me with like time management, because if I'm only doing things that I have consciously decided to do, and then I try to enjoy doing what I'm doing, it's not so much about managing my time. It's just about kind of enjoying myself. I just try to enjoy the journey, say yes to doing things that are fun, and no to things that I can't do for whatever reason. But yeah.
Is there any certain practices that you plan your day, or what certain practices do you do?
Well,
to prepare?
To prepare for the day. I hurt my back badly 2 years ago and had a back operation. And so since then, I have had to kind of change the way that I exercise, which has changed my daily routine. So since then, I've got a little bit into yoga, which I found has really helped me mentally. Yeah. So at the moment, this may change, but at the moment, every morning I wake up, and then I do a short yoga for half an hour, and that just kind of helps me relax and get in a good mind frame for starting the day. And I also, when I wake up, I try not to check Facebook or check my emails or go straight on social media or anything like that. I try to get up and then take some time for myself, and then have breakfast before I go to work and start thinking about what I'm going to do. So I guess I prioritize time for myself at the start of the day, and then from then would look at my calendar and look at what I've got booked in and look at my list of things that I need to do. But I'm in a much better mental space to do that, rather than if you wake up and the first thing that you're doing is on your phone and then on emails and stuff like that. I've
definitely found that as well, because you're constantly reactive.
Yeah.
When you wake up and you check your phone, you're other people's checklist. You're trying to say, oh yeah, okay. But when you block that out, you have that time for yourself, restart, and you have a clear vision. I've definitely seen that in a lot of successful people, that they have the first portion of their day, they block out all social media, emails, and they start their day. Yeah. That's really interesting to see that trend.
Yeah, I read a really good book called Deep Work.
Carl Newport?
Yeah. So good. Yeah, and he's also written another good book that I highly recommend.
So good they can't.
Yeah. So good. I love that book. And so Deep Work basically outlines key strategies that you can use to work more efficiently and more effectively when you do work, and then strategies to help you turn off when you're not at work. Yeah. So I'm not an expert in this, and I definitely don't get it right.
No one's expert, yeah.
But I try to, when I'm working, work really hard and really focus. And then when I'm not working, so like in the morning and when I go home, whether that be at like 9, 10, 11 p.m., try to take some time where I'm not thinking about work. So every single day, making sure I've got some time for myself where I'm switched off. And that like downtime for your brain means that when you do work, that you can focus much better and work more efficiently and effectively.
Yeah. On that note, what's your favorite book?
Favorite book. So those two would be probably up there in my top kind of 10 books. I guess a book that I've read that's really changed or put language around my experiences in the world was Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In book.
Yeah.
And it's called Woman, Work and the Will to Lead. Woman, Work and the Will to Lead. And if it's for women and for men. Yeah. But it talks about biases that we have against females and biases that we have against successful females, and it talks about strategies that women can use to overcome them. And also I really like the example, a research example that she talks about in the book about Heidi and I think Henry. Have you heard of this one?
No, I haven't.
And so two groups of students at a university, I can't remember, I might get the details a little bit wrong, but there's two groups of university students and both groups are read a story with the exact same details, and the only thing that has changed is the name of the person. So there's a Heidi and there's a Henry. Yeah. And so in the story there's like a really successful person who does really well and is a great leader at work and stuff like that, and then they're asked at the end of the group if they like the person. And so the group of students that liked Henry, or that were asked about Henry, really liked him and thought he was really successful and a good team player and someone that they'd like to be like. And then they were asked if they liked Heidi. So it's the same story, and the only thing that's changed is the name. And they're like, nah, we don't really like her. She's like a little bit like out for herself and like not a really good team player. Yeah. And it was just so interesting and like a bit disturbing to...
Have you found that though in New Zealand, how, especially for women that is quite successful, how have you found that?
I think I'm really...
Especially in a male-dominated industry like the finance.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm really lucky to have worked with people that have always respected me and given me the time of day, and I don't feel like, in a way that I'm aware of, I don't feel like people have been sexist towards me. But like you never know what's going on.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think in New Zealand it definitely is an issue because we have a big gender pay gap.
How does that work? I don't understand that gender pay gap. So is it two people working the same job, not getting paid equally, or is it different than that?
So I think also, I mean, if there are two people that are working and doing the same job and the man or the woman is paid more, then there would be a gender pay gap. Yeah. But then in New Zealand, on average, I think it's women earn like 70, I'm not sure of the exact current number, but it's like women earn significantly less on average than men do. Is
that on average?
In similar jobs.
Yeah. Similar jobs or same jobs?
I think so. And I think the other thing is that people get really, like I was talking to Dave about this, who's my husband, and he was like getting all like defensive, like a little bit defensive about it, because he was like, what's the technical, is it like the same job, or like is it people who are working the same hours or like less hours, and like how is it all adjusted? And I don't know those details, but I think like what we can take out of it is that in general women on average are paid less than men, and in general women in female dominated professions are paid less than men, I think.
Yeah, but then there is that definitely true. Yeah, women are paid less, but talking to a lot of like, you know, mates of mine, they do say that it's different jobs. Yeah. And men on average generally they do more risky jobs.
But it's very interesting. Yeah. So it's like it comes down to what does our society value? And so are those jobs paid less because our society values things that women have more traditionally done less?
Like nursing.
Than similar jobs that males might do. And so there was a really good case, which was the equal pay case that Christine Bartlett won. last year. So she is the current New Zealander of the year.
And
she won an equal pay case against the Crown where rest home workers were being paid unfairly, basically. And she talked about herself. She had worked in a rest home, like as a carer, for 25 years and never once had a pay rise, which I think is like
25 years.
Yeah, and so the government basically said that was I don't know the details of the case either, and I would hate to get the details wrong, but she won the case against the government, and they now have fairer working conditions.
But do you think it's better now for women, especially going these careers?
I don't know. How do you mean?
I mean, like, is there still that bias, that strong bias that women aren't as capable as men?
So I think what Cheryl says in her book, in Lean In, is that she wants her kids to grow up in a world where her son could, if he chose to, stay at home and be respected for it, and where her daughter could, if she chose to, be a really successful executive and be liked and respected for it. So it's just about making the same opportunities available for everyone. So there may be dads or like my dad is really like sad that he didn't get to spend more time with me when he was younger, and would have like loved the chance to spend more time with me rather than more time working. And so I think there's heaps of dads out there who might value being able to spend more time with their kids, and there might be that's something that people don't really talk about.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never seen it from that perspective.
And want to be like respected for that. And then there's also women who want to work really, like to have successful careers and also be respected for that. And I think Jacinda Ardern is a great example of someone who's doing something differently and making it work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to be respectful of your time. So last few questions. What's the impact you want to leave behind?
I think, it's such a hard question. And at the end of the day, I think like if I think about what I'd like to achieve in my life, I would like to really, I guess, value the relationships that I have with people that come my way. So I think relationships are really important. And then I would like to be someone that uses the skill set that I've been given to my absolute the best of my ability. So like there's things that that you find that come really naturally to you, and like what I would like for you is that you can use the things that you're best at to the best of your ability. And that's the same for me. I would like to look back and be like, I was really lucky that there were some things that I was naturally really good at, and I was able to really use them to make a difference. And that's what I would like to do.
Powerful. When you hear the word successful, who's the person that comes to mind?
Oh, that's such a hard question, because there's so many different types of success. And so there's I think.
So what is your definition of successful or a good life?
Yeah. Well, I think really like having, in my opinion, there's no point in having a great career if it doesn't impact the community and people around you. So I think making a positive difference, and then also having good relationships with people that cross your path. So if you have a great career and people think you're a horrible person and and your kids and you don't have a good relationship with your kids or your parents, or like for me, I would really like to I would feel like I had done well or was happy if I had managed to make a positive impact and have good relationships with people, not just my partner or my friends and family, but be kind to people when I meet them, and I guess value people and relationships.
Yeah, no, that's very, very true, very powerful. Yeah, I think I'll let you go. Thank you very much, Debbie. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, it was. Cool.